Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. We welcome you to make yourself comfortable as we go over the current state of the world and our nation. If you missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to at least watch the first episode to have a proper introduction to our conversations. These conversations are not otherwise happening in any sequential order. Please be aware that we expect you to behave with honor in our comment section. We are people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or sales podcast, and we are not sovereign citizens. Sovereign citizen is an oxymoron, and if you say that you are a sovereign citizen, you are a moron. A sovereign is a free and honorable living man or woman who operates under God's law, natural law, hermetic law, and who honors themselves and others in peace. One definition for the word citizen is slave, but there are different kinds of citizens. Putting those two words together is an oxymoron. We also do not promote or condone TikTok, Facebook, or any other social media games to test the system or to impose your beliefs onto society at large. This is not a marketing or promotional channel. We are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you, and we are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We are interested in helping you reclaim your birthright and your inheritance. We are not sitting in judgment of you. This information is a beacon of light for you to use when you choose to seek it. We do have marshals at arms that are designated as moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Please be kind with your words, and if you diminish others, you will be put in a timeout or deleted or blocked as deemed necessary. If you have questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on air with our North Carolina Marshal at Arms, Cynthia Pinkston. Now I am proud to introduce to you Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. Good to see you, girls.
Good morning.
Yep, here we are.
Here we are. Anna's been working all night long, protecting our borders.
Trying to.
What's been going on this evening?
Oh, well, let's see. We did some banking stuff, and we had a argument with the church. We had a long discussion about blood oaths and various other issues. And yeah, it was pretty intense. We had quite a go round, and I feel good.
I was telling you that you look like you're just glowing. It's like that cold Alaskan air just preserving you, maintaining your youth. It's like,
I don't know. I feel good, like the song says.
After you got through last night after 11 at our time, and you were talking about the Tories and getting the 6,400, everybody's saying, what is a Tory? Well, we understand that it's a British person that was here for the Residence Act, but are they still here? Are we talking old people? Are we talking current Tories?
Well, a Tory is just an abbreviation. It's kind of a name, a nickname for someone who is British territorial, living out in the British territories. So during the colonial days, there were people here that were British subjects that were living in America, and they retained their British subject status, and they supported the king. And as you all know, the Tories were kind of the bad guys and villains during the Revolutionary War, who fought against their American neighbors for the king. So the Tories were British loyalists. They liked the servitude of being a British subject. And after the war, they remained here in this country, which is something that a lot of people forget. We have a war, and then it seems like, oh, it's all over. But a lot of the issues that are raised in a war remain, and the people remain. And unless you wholesale deport everybody who fought for the other side, then you have a population that is unhappy with their political status. And so rather than have a population that was continually unhappy with their political status, the forefathers said, fine, you want to be a British subject? You can be a British subject. You can adopt British territorial United States citizenship. And that's what a lot of the British sympathizers did after the war, and they continued to live here. So when you are talking about British territorials or Tories, you're talking about people who adopted capital U dot, capital S dot, capital C citizenship. They're British subjects. They always have been. And we've kind of forgotten that they're here. We've kind of forgotten that there are these Americans who are in this separate, different political status, but they've been here with us since the very beginning. And so, when I talk about there being 3 populations here, that's quite literal. There are Americans, and then there are people who appear to be Americans. I mean, they were born and raised here. They talk like us. They live their lives. They go to school here, everything like us. But they're actually British subjects. And then there are other people that look like us, talk like us, were born here, raised here, go to school here, and they're citizens of the municipality of Washington, D.C., called citizens of the United States. And they're Catholic, and they are still ascribing to a citizenship of basically the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. So we have 3 different populations.
Do they know that? Who are these people, Anna? I know a lot of people who are very Orthodox Catholics, but I've never heard them believe that they aren't American or something. So I'm wondering, do they know that?
I have no idea. I'm having a hard time explaining this to some people, but other people know all about it and go, oh yeah, So I suppose it's just a matter of whether they consider that their religion confers a religious, whether or not they realize that their religion confers a political status. But it does.
I don't know if people know that. What do you think, Cynthia? Do you know these people?
Anna has a way of drilling down to the thing. So the religion was the part that we didn't get that throws a Tory, because somebody asked me and I said, maybe they're the old people left over from the war. Maybe they're young people and they were born Tories and they don't know it. Their mama forgot to tell them. And then I'm going, well, wait a minute. And they got money and a card. And how does that fit with the bigger picture of the Tories and them being here on a Residence Act?
So, yeah, like, are these the political people? Like, you know what, Anna, when I was asking you about, like, Catherine Austin Fitts, right? And so you were saying, well, they're brought up in this very compartmentalized lifestyle, whatever, something. So they don't actually understand what you're saying or doing. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, me and Cynthia were talking about this earlier. We were like, are the Tories like, these very elites that don't watch television, that don't, go to regular schools, that, no. I mean, who are these people?
They're British subjects living in America. Many of them, their families have been here for generations. They are people that are working for the federal government or state of state governments. The reason that they're supposedly still here in this country is to provide essential government services, as stipulated in Article 4 of the Constitution of the United States of America. So, you have this population that nobody seems to be aware of, but yet it has a citizenship status that makes it different than us.
So they're vendors? They're our vendors?
Basically, they're supposed to be our public employees. They're supposed to be here providing the services that are stipulated under the Constitution of the United States of America. And that is their Constitution. Now, there were 3 vendors. There was an American vendor, a British territorial vendor, and a Holy Roman Empire vendor when we started out. And each one of those vendors had a constitution, which was their service agreement that set forth how their business was supposed to be structured and what the responsibilities of the various persons that were created under the business, all of that was stipulated in the Constitution for each one of these groups. And so we had the American vendor under the Constitution for the United States of America. And you'll note the word for. And if you were to see this written out, you would see that the word the and the word united are both small. So what they're using united as an adjective to describe states of America. The actual American subcontractor was called the States of America, upper lowercase. That was the American subcontractor, federal subcontractor. And then we had the British territorial subcontractors. And their contract was known as the Constitution of the United States of America. And you see, you still see that published. And then finally, the municipal citizenry worked under the Constitution of the United States. Now, if you've been paying attention throughout your lifetime, you have seen copies of both the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the United States. And if you're just kind of floating along and you're not paying attention, it might not even strike you that, hey, these are 2 different things. But they are. And, sure, they're substantially similar, but they're actually 2 different documents. And then at some point, if you're like me and you get your tail in a knot and you start digging into all this stuff, you'll eventually run into the Constitution for the United States of America. And you'll be left going, what? What's this? And it's because we're never taught our actual history. We're never told about that.
This is the main problem. We don't really know who we are and what we want because we aren't told what we can have and what we wouldn't have and what we would, so that's what I'm asking. Like, I know plenty of people in various realms of just the Catholic Church. That's a municipal part of it is really confusing. Like, do the Catholics in church know this? Like, do they know? Because I don't think they do.
They know about the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, the Holy Roman Empire was a major part of their history for many generations, for centuries. Last time I lost count was Holy Roman Empire 4. So there have been successive iterations of the Holy Roman Empire. And when our forefathers were setting up these contracts for services, the constitutions, they actually contracted with the Holy Roman Empire. So the Constitution of the United States is a a contract that our forefathers held with the Holy Roman Empire, and the organizations and people providing those services today are still associated with the Roman Catholic Church. Yo, Cynthia.
Okay, Anna. Second
Uh-oh.
point of clarification, because I mean, last night we got blew up after you got done. It was like 2:00. And the second clarification, we're beginning to stand up our militia pillars. This militia pillars is first responders. This is not a group of fighting men and women that are going out on maneuvers and practicing maneuvers. This is our first responders, and our peacekeeping task force has given us an insight to the de facto responders and the de jure responders. Our militia is first responders. Can you speak to that?
Well, look, the militia initially took the form that we think of with the assembly militia. I mean, these were people who were living on these landed estates, and they were joining together in their mutual self-interest to defend themselves against whatever came, if it was the British or if it was the natives on the warpath at that point, or if it was anything else. And yes, it did involve guns, and it did involve thinking about your town as something defensible. But much more, it was an organization that was there to be able to respond to natural disasters, things like, I won't say exactly plague, but epidemics of various kinds. You have to realize that back in the days when these organizations were first implemented and created, we were living in a very different world, in a far more hostile world in terms of the experience of the people that were living at that time. I mean, they had diphtheria epidemics and things like that the entire town would be down with. And, many people would die. And, you had to have yourselves organized to be able to bury the dead. You had to be able to organize to nurse those that were sick. You had to do all these different things, manage the cycle of the year from planting to harvesting and storing up and preserving the food for the winter. They used to have gigantic wildfires that would just sweep through entire, large areas. Well, we still have gigantic wildfires in some areas at some times. But all these different things. In some parts of the country, you have earthquakes. Other parts of the country, you have tornadoes and cyclones. Other parts, you have flooding. You have, lots of problems with flash flooding. Other parts, you have earthquake problems that destroy large areas. I mean, yeah, this has not been exactly always a very stable or safe environment. And so the militia organizations were, as you say, first responders. They were the guys out there filling sandbags and, stacking them up against raging river waters. They were the guys that were going out and, making sure that the widows and elderly had their snow removal done in the winter so that they could get into and out of their house, and, all those different things that make a community a community. And so if you want to look at a modern day example of that kind of militia, look at Switzerland. Switzerland got organized at about the same time as the United States got organized. And they got organized on a very similar principle. And their cantons have their people organized as a unified militia. Their cantons are like our states within Switzerland. and they have their militias that are organized within their canton so that everybody growing up is familiar with the militia and they all have a role. I believe it's from 18 to 20, all young Swiss learn how to shoot a gun. You know, they go target practicing, they learn how to take care of their gun, and they all have guns. Everybody in Switzerland has a gun. They know how to use it and clean it, and they have ammo for it and all of that. There's no gun phobia in Switzerland, which is sort of silly. I mean, think about it. It's like being afraid of a garden hoe. You know, could a garden hoe be used to kill people? Yeah, you bet it could. But, you know, are we afraid of it? Do we outlaw it? Hardly. Anyway, so the Swiss have a system like we were supposed to have, but never did, really. Ours was not enforced. The public service in Switzerland is enforced. You have a 2-year period when you are in militia service and you're being trained in the militia. I think it's 18 to 20. And then you go to college. And, you know, yes, Cynthia.
Next question. Let me just roll them off. So let's change gears. So as becoming a marshal at arms, I am. And we've got a little bit of confusion as to that. I have sent you a document on that. So you're going to do a line item on it and read through. I have been attending the Continental Marshals under Paul Pappas and those guys and trying to get my bearing. Can you confirm or deny that they are on the right track and that the Marshal at Arms is a bridge between the state and the Federation to help assist with situations or instances that may come up as to the task of that position? I know it's newly created because you created it, and it has never been before. But can you speak to that?
Well, the peacekeeping task force is actually it was undertaken in prior times. It's not any new idea. It's to organize communication between the militias at the state assembly level, the county sheriffs, and the continental marshals, so that there's communication and connectivity between all these different groups. And the marshal at arms technically is supposed to be keeping the peace at public meetings of the assembly. So they are providing a safe meeting space for the assembly in whatever meeting space, actual or virtual, that may be. They're imposing a decorum upon the proceedings so that you don't have drunks wandering in off the street and commandeering the meeting and ranting and raving about their own personal problems for 2 hours while everybody else is a captive audience. I mean, there are a lot of aspects where the marshal at arms keeps things moving and keeps things tidy, and keeps them safe, so that everybody has their day in the sun and their ability to take the microphone and talk, and everything proceeds in an orderly way. And that's really the only job that has traditionally been ascribed to the marshal at arms. But, over time, there's been kind of a drift toward having the marshal at arms be a contact person for the assembly, and to kind of help coordinate and connect all the dots between the state militia and the continental marshals on one side of it, and the state militia and the county sheriffs and their deputies on the other. Now we have a system where the state militia is mostly a first responder for things that happen within the state, right? We don't cross the borders of other states unless we have a mutually agreed upon agreement, a treaty or whatever between ourselves and the other states. For example, a mutual assistance pact to handle disasters caused by floods on the Mississippi River. Well, you might have half a dozen states that are all part of this same mutual assistance pact. And when one of them gets hit with a flood from the Mississippi, everybody piles on and you come from multiple states and you help. But in order to do that, you need to work out those kinds of agreements. You can't just be crossing into the borders of some other state and say, hi, Iowa, I'm here from Alaska, because there would be some concerns and potential problems with doing that unless you did have those agreements in place. Okay, so there are some things to be considered here in terms of coordinating multi-state responses, developing those sorts of relationships and agreements in advance of anything happening. There are needs to coordinate across multiple jurisdictional boundaries. Our continental marshals are focused on different interstate crimes that occur on the land jurisdiction. And that could be anything from bank fraud, human trafficking, counterfeiting, drug smuggling, all those sorts of things that go on an interstate basis on the land jurisdiction. So they're operating up here at this interstate level on the land jurisdiction, and they're addressing those kinds of crimes that take place and occur across state borders. And then you have our state militias, which of course are operating within the borders of the state, and they are performing a more first responder kind of role. But also the state militias can act as peacekeeping forces. They basically have to be trained for that, because what happens when you have a wildfire or you have a flood or something really goes south? Well, then you wind up with a situation where homes are deserted, people have left their homes, they've evacuated, and somebody has to be there to keep the peace to prevent looting. Somebody has to be there to go door to door and check and make sure that elderly people are not trapped in their house, unable to get out because of mobility issues. Somebody has to be there to direct traffic when the traffic lights go down. There's all these different things that happen during a disaster or emergency of some sort, and we have our state militias there to step in and go, okay, well, what happens if you have a situation where you have a bunch of injuries? Say that we have some sort of an epidemic and we have to set up a community field hospital. Well, who's going to do that? And where are the people in our community who have the medical skills who could take charge of a situation like that? And, this is very practical kind of stuff that we need to think about in terms of our state militias. Where are our skill sets? Has everybody in the militia had CPR training? Does everybody know how to recognize a stroke? Does everybody know what to do? You know, when do you do triage on the spot, and how do you do it? And then, where do you take them in an emergency? Electricity goes out. Suddenly there's a blackout over 5 states. We've seen it before. What do you do? Well,
mass casualty event, and well-trained militia means trained to handle the situation, not military training.
Right. I mean, it's a fine line between, is it a peacekeeping function or is it a military function? But you have to be thinking about this in terms of being a civilian. There isn't a military out there that's going to organize you and put you in ranks like, the general down to the buck private. This is a much more egalitarian, not rank focused endeavor. It's a function focused endeavor. Everybody knowing what they're going to do and how they're going to approach and who they're going to be working with if this happens, and what are the different problems that we could face? I mean, in the northern states, if there's a major power blackout in the winter, you're talking about a major league problem. You're going to have to mobilize and open up buildings that school buildings and churches and get people into shelter where it's warm and dry and there are generators and you're keeping things going. There's going to be a whole bunch of different aspects of keeping people alive and warm and fed and having enough water to distribute. All those sorts of issues have to be kind of pre-planned, and within your community you have to get to know each other so that when there's a family that has someone who has mobility issues or a family that has a whole bunch of little kids and may need additional help, and that's the role that your state assembly militia can help perform in delivering real service to people in times of need.
Anna, you told me something this week that was really enlightening in terms of our scope. You and I were talking about, you were explaining to me about how we would hire our state of state and they would be we would be hiring the bureaucrats. And I was like confused because like a lot of folks that are working on these things, when I'm thinking about the bureaucrats, I'm thinking about these people who are running these positions that I don't like. And you were like, no, Niti, you are going to take them over. You're not going to kick them out. You're going to take them over in the sense of they are the vendors, you are the customer, and you are going to make it clear to them that, for example, in the state of North Carolina, we are not going to be, and I'm not speaking for the state of North Carolina, everybody out there, just for the record, I'm talking generically. I haven't, nobody's voted on this or anything, but I'm just saying because I live here, okay, I don't want fluoride in the water. And so I have actually been to city council meetings and asked them why they aren't just distilling the water, because that is how you clean water. And so can we just distill the water? Well, from what I got from you over the weekend, we were explaining is that our assembly would be hiring the bureaucrats, the vendors who would be serving us to create the state that we want. So if we were to decide that we took a vote and we decided that we only want distilled water and we don't want fluoridated water and we don't want chemicals in the water, we don't want chlorine in the water and blah, 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 blah in the water, then we would look for vendors. The vendor who is currently doing it, we'd say, you know what? this is not what we want. And across the state, we would like to ban the use of all these, chemicals and toxins in the water, and we prefer to distill the water. Are you able to do that for us? And then they will maybe say yes or no. And then we will say, oh, okay, well, never mind then. And we will find a vendor who can actually do the service.
Niti, most people have never thought about what self-governance implies. And they have never envisioned the way our country used to work.
Because we don't know. Yeah, we can't vision what we haven't envisioned. So please, I would love for you to paint this picture, because you were just so amazing. And I was just reading your words and I was like going, oh my gosh, the scope of this is not what we thought. It's bigger and better. It just gets better with you, Anna. It just gets better every single time. So please tell everybody, because they're going to love this.
Well, just ask yourself, okay, so here I am. I'm self-governing. I'm the sovereign. And by the way, you're not a sovereign citizen, but you are a foreign sovereign with respect to their system. That's a good thing to know and remember. So here I am. I'm self-governing. I'm one of the people. What does that mean? How does that work? How does that get translated into what we think of as a government, right? Well, the state assembly's job, besides providing these functions, which everybody is focused on organizing and being able to provide, is to decide what you want. Okay, you're the customers. You're the ones that are paying for all these services, right? So you have to ask yourself at the assembly level, well, what do we want as customers of government services that we're going to pay for? And whatever the answers are, then you have to arrange for a system that provides those services and provides oversight of those services to make sure that all the vendors are producing and doing what they need to produce under their contracts. And the way this is structured is, okay, here's the state assembly. The state assembly decides, well, yes, we need to provide snow removal. Okay, there's a good example. So we're going to provide snow removal to everybody. We're going to clear all the state roads. Okay. So then you hire the state of state legislature is the business end of this. The state of state legislature receives the directive from the assembly saying, oh, well, we're going to keep all of the state roads cleaned and repaired. That's a goal for our state. And, here you go. So then the state legislature gets busy and they promulgate a plan that describes, what are the state roads, which ones are main thoroughfares, and what order do the snow removal activities take. They have to clear this road before they clear that road. They come up with this entire plan. They go out and they hire companies to come in and work under a state contract to clear the snow, or they find it's more cost effective, and they set up an entire department within the state structure where they have their garages and they have their snow removal equipment and they have their own mechanics and everything else, and they have their own kind of DOT program. Okay, all of this is being driven by what? By the state assembly's decision that, yeah, we're going to remove the snow. Okay. So you made the decision that you wanted snow removal on all the state roads, and you agreed to pay for that. And then the state of state organizes the plan in specific, how exactly this is going to be done, what's the most cost-effective way of doing it. They take care of hiring the vendors or setting up the garages. All of that stuff is at the state level. They're your employees, and their legislature is making rules for their employees. They're not making rules for you. They're making rules for their employees to get all this work done, right? And that's how it's supposed to be. But the state assemblies have been missing in action. And so the state legislature doesn't get that kind of direction from anybody. They're kind of working on their own. The employees have been directing their own activities, and they've been doing this for a long time. And so without any kind of stop block on it, they've just been proliferating services and expanding the number of employees and expanding the expenses of state government ad infinitum, just running wild and then handing you the bill. So the employees
we're just like, where are you coming up with stuff? People, like, all the things that we actually need and want, we can't get those little basic things. This is a game changer, friends. This is a game changer for all the assemblies to actually get together and start thinking about what it is that we want and what it is that we don't want. And instead of feeling like, how are we going to get rid of this guy or that guy? We don't have to get rid of anybody. We just need to have a new menu. That's what it seems like.
Right. You get to choose, you get to pick what you want. You're the customer. You're the one, the end line payer.
Wow.
You're the boss. You're the employer. So you get to tell the state legislature what your priorities are. And then they get to figure out how they're going to provide those services. And then you get to evaluate whether they provided the service you wanted and to the extent that you wanted it. Or, you get to pass judgment on the state legislature's performance. They get to pass judgment on the performance of their employees and vendors. Okay. And that's how that's supposed to work. But the state assemblies haven't been meeting forever, right? Mm-hmm. And so there hasn't been an employer in charge of the shop. And as a result, the employees have been running everything however the employees saw fit. And as far as they're concerned, bigger budgets are better. And more services. That's how you get this cancerous growth of government, is there's nobody standing there saying, no, that's not what we want. Or, no, that's too much of this and not enough of that. And no, we want to limit the expense of the government. There are a lot of things that we can provide for ourselves, and we're happy to do that. And it does not need to be a public function. No,
can we get these roads done already? Can we get the roads done already? Like, can we just get this project done so we can move on with the next thing? And all of this illogical nonsense that they're doing. This is such a relief. I mean, it was such a relief to me, Anna. I was like going, oh my gosh. Like, now we can just actually say, hey, can we just get these roads right here to work? Okay, next. We can, so we come in session, we make a plan for the things that we want to accomplish for that session. We expect them to deliver the goods. They either do or they don't or whatever. We can figure that out. And then we move on. And so you just changed the scope of what the assembly's work is going to be. And they should be thinking about that in that scope versus us doing every single thing and having to recreate every single little thing and do all the minutia down to every single penny budget. And it's exhausting and also feels impossible. But when you are speaking about it in this fashion, then it's like, whoa. In North Carolina, we, for example, have this company that I don't like very much that's doing a lot of bad things. I don't need to worry about that. I just need to get what, we as an assembly just need to have a vote. Hey, do we like these people who are doing this to all of Eastern North Carolina? And do we want them to continue to do that or not? Oh, we don't? Okay, let's just let them know.
Yes.
They're out.
Well, yeah. Instead of you getting out there and having to do a whole lot of this, the state assembly looks at the situation. They say, "Nah, these people are bothering us. They're abusing our land in some form." And that you just take it to the governor and you say, "Okay, Mr. State of State Governor, this is a problem. We want it solved, and here's what we want to do." And Mr. Chairman of the State of State Legislature, here's what the priority is.
Here's your marching orders. Here's your marching orders.
From the people who are the government, who have just, exercised their sovereign authority on this matter.
Wow. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one of the questions from Lisa in Ohio. What about the General Assembly handbook Anna wrote? Can each state just take that and use it for their own and put their seal on it? Or do they have to recreate their own? First question. Carry on.
Before you do that, I'd like a chance to edit and do a new edition, because a lot of questions have come up since I wrote that, and I'd like to be able to answer. And then there are some things that, I didn't explain well enough, or I didn't quite use explicit enough language. And I think I need to actually sit down and read the General Assembly handbook and, do a second edition.
So we can work together on trying to figure these couple of things out. I'll make sure to send it to you, Anna. And then once you think that it is appropriate, or whatever you do, whatever your decision is, then it is fine for everybody across the country. If they feel like they want to use it, they can use it, or they have the power as self-governing states to simply make adjustments to it to suit their own state.
Yeah, well, the important thing about all these quote unquote pillars is that you get something that works and is fair to everybody. There are only two quote unquote restrictions, and that is that it has to work and provide the function, and it has to be fair. At this late date in our development as a country, I don't seriously think that things like racial prejudice are a likely thing to ever rear their ugly heads again. But we do have the restriction in that if there's a benefit or a protection of the law, it has to apply equally to everybody. So other than that, you can figure out how you're going to get your court functions to run. You can figure out who's going to do which job and what you're going to call those positions. If you want to have a court secretary, a court recorder, and a court clerk, all three, you can have them. If you only want to have a court clerk, you can do that. If you want to have a court administrator, somebody who just is in charge of paying the light bill and making sure the facilities where the courts are held are up to snuff and that sort of thing, you can do that. You get to choose and pick. Now, does your General Assembly want to actually handle all those sorts of aspects, right down to the nitty gritty of what are the court hours, or how many hours and what days are the law libraries open? You can get down and micromanage if you want to. I mean, you're the state assembly. Or you can turn to the state of state and say, okay, well, here's what we need done. And you figure out the rest of it.
Yeah. That's incredible. So then it's like our assembly actually is the oversight for the state of state, which is the bureaucrats that we currently have. When we think of bureaucrats, we're thinking, oh, the red tape of us having to deal with whatever. But we eliminate the red tape because we are the assembly, and we're just dictating to them, and they have to perform and deliver, or else we just find us somebody else.
Right.
Or the vendors, right?
Right. Well, see, you use the state of state as a business instrumentality to do things like hire vendors and take care of property management and repair and maintenance, and set schedules and personnel policies for the workers, the state of state workers, and all that kind of stuff. That's the state of state's bailiwick. But you get to set the overall agenda for the state because you hold general jurisdiction and they don't.
Wow.
And so you get to look at the situation and say, well, do we want to have improved airport service to this part of the state? Yes or no? Is this a big issue? Well, the people who are representing that part of the state in the state assembly will, raise their hands and say, okay, well, we have a real need to have more airports over on this side of the state. We've got traffic here and we got industries that need it, and blah, blah, blah. Well, okay. The state assembly looks at the situation. They say, okay, well, this year we need to rebuild this weir on the Mississippi River for flood prevention and containment. That's a higher priority this year. But we'll look at your airport next year. And so the state assembly is actually kind of the body that is supposed to be running the show and making decisions about where state money is being employed and what it's being employed for, and ultimately what you want your state to look like and what it's supposed to be doing. I mean,
nice. So like, we want these 5G towers gone. These are banned from North Carolina. We can just say, you know what? Just
state legislature, by the way. Yeah,
these are banned. Also, we don't want people spraying our skies. Banned. Also, we don't want, okay. So hey, you guys out there, are y'all paying attention? So make notes, start making a list and checking it twice. Start thinking, what do you want and why do you want it? Because this is what we're supposed to be doing as the assembly. That is awesome. When you told me that, I was just like, wow. Anna says to me, Cynthia, she goes, if it took me this long to explain it to you, and because I was just like, really? Because that seems like so much. You know what it was, Anna? It was just like almost too good to be true. I was like, are you serious right now? And you just made it cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And I was like, oh my goodness. You know what I know is that I operate under the truth, under the law of nature. And what I like about working with you, Anna, is every time I talk to you, the more I talk to you, you just make it cleaner and easier, just like flowing downstream like nature. And that's how I know that it is the moral and right thing. That's how I know. And I really love you so much for always, you don't do anything to ever get us going upstream. And you're always just like, you guys, come on. We're going down this way. Just get in the donut and let's just flow down the stream. What are you doing?
Get the cords up. Well, how do we do it? Get the cords up. How do we do it? Get the cords up. How do we do it?
Get in the donut, which is the quart. So you can flow down the stream.
Well, everybody has experienced, just using that as an example, everybody's experienced their courts. And so this is the picture we have of what a court is. But there are other possibilities. And among those other possibilities is that you can have a very simple court that doesn't have all of this, pomp and circumstance. you see their judges come in and they're wearing their black robes, and they have this entire thing that's set up like a theater, where you've got the observers out there. It's this bizarre kind of situation. It's unnatural, right? And the judge is sitting up there in this, high, almost like a pulpit above the action that's going on. And it's a very bizarre, foreign thing, and actually it's set up to intimidate people, which is not what justice should be. Okay, and there has been a time in this country when we have had pure and simple courts of the people, for the people, by the people, that have been very practical and simple. And what I mean by simple is, unlike, what you're used to and thinking of courts and lawyers and all of that, you're thinking about all of these tomes, entire libraries of nothing but books that are statutes and codes and regulations, and they all look the size of an Oxford English dictionary. And when you open them up, they're nightmares of legalese and gobbledygook, and you have to be trained for 20 years to be able to read it, right? This is what you're thinking of when I say courts. But that's not what American courts are. That's not what our courts have ever been. Our courts are, a guy is sitting up there as the judge, and his job is to make sure that you've got a fair playing field. And after you've made your decision, it's his job to pronounce it. Okay, so he's looking at, is this evidence valid evidence, or is it hearsay? Is this evidence, something admissible and rational, it should be here? Or is this just, somebody cobbling something up to make it look bad? The judge is there to judge the evidence, okay? Or rather, the justice is there to make sure that the justice makes decisions about how things are presented, the order in which they're presented, the evidence, what's admissible, what isn't, and just keeps things in order, So first we're going to have the prosecutor who's going to bring the accusation and lay out the case, right? And then you have the defense answering. Then you have the prosecutor come back and, then you have them cross-examining witnesses. Then you have them discussing physical evidence. At the end of the day, it all gets trotted out before the jury is sitting there, ears like that. And the jury makes a decision. Then it goes back to the judge, to the justice sitting there. The jury foreman hands him the piece of paper and, reads out, the sentence is read out, and that's it. The bailiff takes the guy into custody, or he doesn't. It's all very, very simple. Our justice system is completely just a bunch of people getting together, hearing the facts, looking at the evidence, and making a decision about, what do we do with this? Is this person due compensation? If so, how much? Is this person, wasting our time? Well, then slap them on the wrist and send them home. We respond as juries the same way that we respond when we go to the store and pick out a pizza. We're looking at the facts and we're making decisions based on the facts and the law that pertains to the situation. Okay, we got a murder case. All right. Well, obviously someone has been injured. The murdered party has been injured. but they're not there to represent themselves. They can't come up from the grave and say, thus and so. So that's the one case where we have, well, actually there are two cases where we have public prosecutors. Otherwise, the defendant and the plaintiff represent themselves. They're right there. They present their evidence and their arguments, and we go from there. The only time that we have a public prosecutor is in the case of murder or disability. Say that someone has been injured, but they're so crippled up that they can't adequately express themselves, then you have a public prosecutor to act as their mouthpiece, or to speak for the dead. But otherwise, we don't have public prosecutors. We have individual people who have to have the guts enough to stand up and say, Joe injured me. And here's when it happened, and this is how it happened, and this was the result. And I'm hurt, and I need to be made whole on this. Okay.
No glory.
And the judges, everybody's there listening to this. Joe robbed me. He came through my garage and he stole my Milwaukee drill and my axe and my chainsaw and blah, blah, blah. And I saw him get into his truck and drive away. I'm a direct witness to this. And all my stuff is missing. Okay? So the guy presents, okay, there's the empty shelves where all my tools were. And here's my neighbor who saw the guy get in the truck with all my tools and drive away. Whatever the evidence is. And then you just make your decision. As the jury, you make the decision. There's a law that has theft of property.
All right, we got more questions. What else do we need to do to have our positions elected?
Well,
so they're close to standing up their state, Lisa, and they're very, if you need a job, come to North Carolina. We don't need you going to any other state. We need a justice in North Carolina with experience. But there are some positions that we don't need, that we're over concentrating on and writing these handbooks. What can we do on a minimal scale to go ahead and get these courts up? We're close to getting the 4 pillars up, but we're so busy writing handbooks and SOPs. Help.
Well, I think you're overdoing it. I think that's not the, handbooks and SOPs only go so far. I think people ought to be wrapping their heads around what the function is before they try writing SOPs for doing the function. And I'm not seeing that people are really thinking too hard about, okay, what's really necessary here? What's the job to be done?
And what between a handbook and an SOP, Anna? I want to know the difference between a handbook and an SOP, because I've never.
This is all more military crap that we don't need. Okay. This is the military training kicking in. Oh, you have to have a handbook. Oh, you have to have an SOP. No, you don't. You might need a guidebook. You might need to have a structure, an organizational structure. You might have
like a flow chart, Anna, like a flow chart of.
Well, it will be helpful, I'm sure. But the idea is to get the job done. Okay,
right.
Pure and simple. And so, how do we get our officers elected? Well, first of all, you make an announcement that there's going to be an election for office. For these offices are going to be filled. Okay, so then you let people either self-nominate and volunteer, or have take nominations from the floor of the General Assembly meeting. You leave the nominations open for 30 days. Everybody gets a chance to step up. In the meantime, those who are standing for office are vetted. Your vetting committee interviews them. They do a simple search of their criminal records, if there are any, just to make sure that you're not electing someone to be a treasurer who has a long history of embezzlement. You know, and the vetting committee asks them about any possible conflicts of interest with the office. And that's it. You know, as soon as the vetting committee kind of goes, okay, well, they met the eligibility requirements for the office, if there are any, like, you know, age or living in a particular place, you know, within a county or whatever the eligibility requirements are. The vetting committee goes, yep, they met the eligibility requirements, and no, they don't have any significant criminal history that would moderate against them holding this office. And yep, we could find no conflict of interest with this candidate. So yep, they're cleared to be on the ballot. All right, so then you've announced, okay, we have an election going on. We're going to take nominations and candidate volunteers. And then we're going to have this vetting process for another 2 weeks. And then we're going to have the election on this day. Okay, you give everybody 30 days notice. Okay, we're going to have the election on this day. And in between, you have a meeting where the candidates can discuss, you know, well, I'm so-and-so, and this is why I think I would like to do this job. And, you know, they do their spiel. And everybody votes on it.
You're on mute. But okay, we were saying that Lisa Schaefer is saying, what else do we need if we have our positions elected?
Well, if they've got their positions elected, and they know what they're doing, and they feel confident, then they need to notify us. They need to kind of have a entire review, make sure that everything's working right. And if so, well, then you're fully seated.
Boom. Okay, Jennifer Lewis says, Baby Deed's question, record of land recording instead of deed of land recording, and use that number as your baby's ILB private identity. I think this person is not talking to one of our assembly people. I think that's, is that not right?
Yeah, that's old stuff. That's stuff from long ago.
Jennifer, you need to find your actual assembly on your state, and you can go to our, we have a link tree in the show notes. And from there, there's the TASA website that takes you to Anna's website. And you can click on a state and then talk to your state person for this. Okay?
Right. Well, okay. Let me very briefly go over this because
Sure.
it's important.
Okay.
When you have a baby, the very first thing that people used to do was put a birth announcement in the paper. And the parents did this. You know, the parents of the family did this. On such and such a day and place, a son, Robert Stephen, was born to Catherine Marie and John Robert Paulson of Trapper Creek. And, you know, and you kind of announce to the whole community, okay, we've got a new member. Hey, and this is our child, and it's our son, and we accept him as our son, and we're telling the whole world that, yeah, this is our son. Hey, all right. Okay, so they would put an announcement in the local paper, and that would be, you know, they would write it in the family Bible, or you know, they would find a way of recording all the details. Well, that's what we still need to be doing. But in this entire mechanized age, then the courts started getting, you know, the foreign courts wanted to basically do a inventory of their human resources, right? And so they started demanding that their there should be this more official record. And so then we have birth records, and we have things like the baby record. We don't call it a deed, although a deed just means it's something you did, right? Okay. We call it a baby record now. And it's just, again, this kind of recitation of the facts that, a son, blah, blah, born, blah, blah, at blah, blah, to blah, blah, so that you have a record of the name of birth and place of your son or your daughter. And you place that on the public record of your assembly, and then that becomes an admissible public record, a permanent public record of the facts. Okay, and that's admissible in any court of law. So if it ever comes up as to who owns this kid, who's responsible for them until they turn 21, there's the record. This is the son of Elvis and Jane Parkman, and that's how you claim your children, is by making these kinds of public declarations and publications and records. And I think that most of us, if we stop and think about it, realize that it's important to claim your children, not just leave them, to be snatched up and manhandled by the state or some agency that will presume against you if the child is not claimed.
Thank you, Anna. Jeff is saying, what does the Federation know about the 14 quadrillion UCCs filed by the Office of... I don't think we care about this UCC stuff, right? Or do you care about this?
Well, I have an interest in it because, we've had to do this. 14 quadrillion UCCs filed by the Office of Military Settlements, researched by Dr. Three Rivers and Howard Bertram, and the subsequent case they filed in Hawaii. Well, I say they're too late. Military settlements is taking a position of, you guys owe us all this money for the service members. And, we're going to claim your land and take your stuff. And in this case, I'm sure it's the natives of Hawaii are coming forward and saying, oh, they've done all these damages, and, we were not paid for this, that, or the other thing, right? Well, it's too late, folks. Everything in this country has already been claimed. And it's all been rolled into trusts. And so there's really nothing left for them to claim. It all belongs to the people. And the people have both private and public assets that belong to them. I mean, we all have our own private stuff, right? We all have our homes, our businesses, our farms, So we have our private assets, but then we have our share of public assets too. We own each state. So you, as a Californian, have a stake not only in what is yours directly, yours personally, but you have a stake in the state parks and the state roads and all the state infrastructure. You have a share of that too. And so all of that stuff has already been claimed. It's already been set aside. It already belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the Office of Military Settlements. It does not belong to just, this particular native group or that. And, it really doesn't matter what these silly courts think that they're going to do with it, because it's already done. And, the moment that they come forward and try to enforce on any of this, our courts of general jurisdiction are going to come out and go, Yeah, you silly buggers, go away. It's already done. This belongs to the people of this state. You don't have any say-so over it. Bye.
Okay, Anna, we're going way over, but I'm going to go through these couple of real quick questions because I think we already know the answers for them, and you just correct me if I'm wrong about it. But TJ's saying, is it true that each state has a Blue Dot Bank established? Not yet, right?
Not yet. What you have is an account for a Blue Dot Bank that is going to be established to serve your state as a state bank.
Also, has there been a GFG account established for each state? And if so, who is in possession of it? Not yet. We're working on that.
Well, there is an account established. It hasn't been funded yet. It will be. And so then you'll have, for example, Ohio State Assembly will have an Ohio account.
Boom. And then Ohio will have a lesson on how to use the account, which we're not there yet, guys. Okay. Ronald Ackland, when will we be able to get our Z tags? Ohio is unresponsive. Your courts aren't up yet, friend. As soon as the courts are up, then you'll be able to figure all that stuff out, because you'll go to the state of state and you will say to them, in our state, we want blah, 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 blah. And, or can you provide that for us? Oh, you can't? Okay, let me find someone who can. Thank you so much. Right? That's
well, the state of state doesn't really have the option of turning down a request from the state assembly for a service. I mean, their entire business is to provide you with the services you need. See, think about it in terms of the employees have been running the hen house.
Yeah, they've been running the store, guys, and we're back from vacation. Shirley James says, hello, Anna. Please, if you will explain how we will put our foreign currency on the global bank.
Okay, well, you have your Federal Reserve notes, right? That's a commercial scrip. So that goes in the commercial bank. So you have a commercial bank on the sea, you have a commercial bank on the land, and you just transfer the commercial scrip from your maritime bank to your land jurisdiction bank. And that puts everything back under the law of the land, and it puts you back in control of the situation and the asset or the debt that represents. And it's just a straight across the board thing, because guess what? Land and sea are both international jurisdictions, and the only difference is the law that pertains. And you can conduct commerce either on land or sea. You can conduct it under the law of the land, Constitution, and all those things, or you can conduct it under the law of the sea, which is basically a free-for-all where everything's crazy. So you can just transfer your FRNs over to a land jurisdiction commercial bank, one of our bilateral banks that has a commercial side to it. And then from there, if you want to translate that back and forth to American Federation dollars that are gold backed, or to US silver dollars or gold Cougarans, you can. Or you can go the other way. You can take your American Federation dollars that are gold backed, and you can trade those and have Federal Reserve notes entered in your account in the commercial bank. You have a lot more flexibility with a bilateral bank, because you can suddenly use both gold and silver based assets, and you can use the fiat script if you want to.
Yeah, we've never been able to do this, guys. It's going to be incredible. Okay, so Philip wants to know, I think he's saying, is it true colored people and women have elected fully into the General Assembly? I don't know what you mean exactly. I think that we all love everybody. So we're just liquid love, loving everybody.
Yeah, our government has never had any prejudices against people because of race. That was something that was unique to the Confederation. And the Confederation was all state of state organizations. So that's something that no longer has any bearing on anything in the modern world and didn't have any bearing on the Federation or the Union ever.
Lisa says, as a Catholic, modern Catholics do not regard the Holy Roman Empire as active to their knowledge. Most only see it as religion, if not simply faith.
Right. The Holy Roman Empire technically ceased to exist in the early 1800s. But if you look around, you will see that there are all sorts of people that have HRE after their names in the church. Well, what does this mean? It means Holy Roman Empire. And so the officers of the Holy Roman Empire are still there. And you will find that there are successors to the contracts that the Holy Roman Empire held. So, for example, our forefathers had a contract called the Constitution of the United States with the Holy Roman Empire. And when the Holy Roman Empire dissolved in the early 1800s, that contract did not just evaporate. A successor that was basically the city of Rome came forward and started providing those services or overseeing the provision of those services by the Postal Service. And then you have, going on from there, you have the Universal Postal Union that picks up on the service contract and is a successor. And that's just one example. But anyway, there are repercussions of having had a contract with the Holy Roman Empire because these successor organizations that are still being overseen by the church step in and take over.
Wow. What are Liberty dollars, Anna? Somebody's pushing them. The silver dollar? I don't know.
Well, there are a whole bunch of different kinds of currencies that have been marketed by individual groups and by states even, and there's really nothing keeping your state from creating its own coinage, for example. But we do have our agreement to have a mutual currency. And that's what we use when we're conducting interstate or international business. Nowadays, with all of the communications networks and everything we have, it's very easy to translate the value of a known quantity of silver and a numismatic brand into a market value. So if you wanted to invest in silver dollars, but there aren't enough silver dollars around to invest in, and you still want to put your money in silver, well, then you might be looking at other countries' currencies or into state-sponsored currencies or into organizations that are producing a coinage of known assay value.
Lisa Schaefer wants you to know that Ohio are ready to help, and can they help you edit? They want you to know that. Let's see here. We already asked this question. What is the process of getting a Sign in America coordinator?
Somebody just has to step up, volunteer, and be trained.
Are the GFG ready to accept negotiable instruments?
Yeah, well, the Global Family Bank of Commerce is. Try to wrap your heads around the bilateral bank system. You have the Global Family International Trade Bank. It deals with assets. It deals with actual physical assets. It deals with silver certificates. It deals with silver, currencies, and coinage. It deals with gold. Okay? That's the international trade side of it. Then you've got the international or the Global Family Bank of Commerce. And the Bank of Commerce deals with all negotiable instruments that we typically think of, with fiat currencies, with stocks and bonds and debentures and securities and all the credit side of stuff. Okay, so you've got two sides. You got two different banks. That's why we call them bilateral banks, but they're paired together so that they can interface with each other and talk to each other directly. And you can have an account. You can have one master account, and you have an account with Global Family Commercial Bank for dealing with all these different forms of fiat currencies and so on, euros and FRNs and all of that. And then you have the International Trade Bank, which allows you to trade in gold and silver and certificates and that sort of thing.
Where can I get training for a justice position in my assembly?
Well, justices are hard to find and hard to train. And unfortunately, on average, it takes me 18 months to retrain a bar attorney to be able to function as a justice, just because they've got so much experience in the other system that they have to, it takes a while for them to clean that out of their system and start thinking and acting in terms of being a common law justice. There are people in every state who are devotees of the American common law. And you basically have to draft one. You have to find one and draft them and get them to, come on board and join your assembly. Either that, or you have to undertake the training of actually, number one, starting some of the Brent Winters training courses, which he's been providing, and studying up on the various kinds of law, how to use a law library, what kinds of law could pertain in your state. So many historical type things that have to be routed through in each state. I mean, you have state law, you have state of state statutes, you have U.S. public law from the United States statutes at large, and you have the law of the land, and all those things play in and guide the questions that'll come before a state court. So somebody has to be into it. Somebody has to really care about the law and common law and procedures and rules of evidence and all those sorts of things in order to stand up your courts. But I can guarantee you that there are people in every state of the union who have the knowledge. And you just got to kind of go out there and hunt for them, find them, and try to find people that are as knowledgeable as you can possibly get. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is entirely possible. And the most important thing is that you find somebody who will make the dedication to educate themselves. Being a justice is an ongoing education. And so you want somebody who realizes that, hey, this hasn't been done in many years. We're finding our feet. We have a lot of research, a lot of work to do to make this work. Now, right now, we've got our team together to try to put more structure behind this for people. And so, we are reviewing court decisions. We are reviewing the key court, case law decisions that have been made in the past about the most common issues that people have to deal with and that our courts will have to deal with. And so that is actually going on right now. Some of the lawyers that have made the break with the old system, with the foreign system, are doing that work right now. And, like every day I'll find a court case that is, one of those seminal cases that forms the basis of the law and the common law, and I'll be passing it on to our team, and they'll be adding it and putting it into their little category. So we are doing work to make it easier. But you're still going to have to find somebody who is familiar with law libraries and different forms of law and different jurisdictions and venues, and who can organize a court and make it work.
Well, on that note, we've gone way over time. But I mean, I think this was such an awesome session. We received so much clarity. Thank you so much, Anna. And I don't know, Cynthia, do you have anything else before we wrap?
Tune in next week, and if you have any extra shekels, Anna could use them, especially till the money comes in. She needs shekels, she needs shoes, she needs Jim out of the hospital, and she needs him home, and she needs some groceries, and she needs dog food.
You just heard it in the background. Woof, woof. Yes, I have two of them.
He's like, she's not cooking anymore, guys. What's going on?
Oh, they're pathetic. My dogs are so pathetic. As soon as I go near the stove, they're both there.
Are you going to cook? Are you ready?
Is there a roast beast in the future here? I gotta go, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Good night. Good day. Everything.